Heather and Philip, thank you for doing this, and I'd just like for you to just kind of go back to that day and tell me how the day started and maybe when you knew something wasn't going right.
Okay. It was about 8 years ago. It was our firstborn, and they started out pretty normal. I started having some pains in my lower left side like throughout the day, but they'd kind of just go away and then come back, and just didn't think anything about it. And then closer towards the evening, it just kept getting worse, and we knew something wasn't quite right. We weren't quite sure if it was like preterm labor or just something was going wrong. So at that point, we decided to call the hospital. And Phil talked to the actual birthing center there to figure out if we should come in through the ER or just go straight up there, or what we needed to do, because it was a holiday, so we wasn't sure if the doctor was even in. So we decided, they told us just to come straight to the birthing center, so we did. And I think he told him like how soon we'd get there and that we were on our way.
Do you remember who you talked to that day?
It was just a nurse with the birthing center.
Okay.
Because I asked specifically to talk to someone with OB, and
Okay.
they transferred me up there, and not really knowing what all information they needed. I kind of went to what I'm used to given as information, and I told them her pain level is at an 8. This is our first child, so we're not sure what to expect. How far out we were, 10 minutes out, and try to give as much information as I could, so that way they were already prepared for us.
Okay.
And as we got there, no one seemed to help. No one cared enough to help. I remember we walked in, we figured out how to get up there by ourselves. Then we got to the OB department. I seen a nurse at the desk, and the only thing she did to help us was she pointed, and they had did they have a sign on the door? I can't, like, I
It
think
was just open, I think.
they just
Pointed to a room.
pointed to a room and said, go to that room. We go in that room. There's no blankets, no pillows, nothing in the room to set it up. It's like they just cleaned it maybe and put everything out and never reset the room back up. So, and coming from a medical background within the military side, I was expecting to see, everything ready to go.
Yeah.
Since we called ahead.
Right.
It wasn't like we didn't call and tell them anything, because I give her symptoms, I give how long it's been, how the pain intensity with the same scale they use, 1 to 10. And then, so I'm looking through the room to find pillows and blankets just to try to make Heather comfortable. And then a nurse finally comes in a few minutes later and says, did you already pee in the cup? And I'm like, am I supposed to find that too for you? Because at this point, I'm getting frustrated and angry, and I'm trying to comfort her because we're both kind of freaking out. And then she's like, oh, that's okay. I'll get the cup. And I'm like, okay.
So you basically felt like nobody was taking you seriously
Right.
when you came
That it
in.
wasn't anything
Yeah.
to worry about.
Yeah.
That we were probably just freaking out over nothing.
Okay.
I can remember that it was a good while before we even see the doctor at all.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly how long, but it felt like forever.
It felt like eternity.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
it was like one of the worst feelings in the world. Everybody hates the unknown.
Right.
But for new parents, no one would give us any information. No one would tell us what the next step was, like kind of like lead us up to what, okay, you need to pee in the cup, then we're going to do this test, we're going to do this test, we're going to make sure everything's okay. we just got to rule everything out.
Right.
If they would have just talked to us like people
Right.
versus, nothing.
Yeah.
Because I even asked to like get a cup of ice or a cup of water to see if, so for Heather, and to see if she can have it or not have it, or what the situation could be. And then they finally brought the ultrasound machine in.
After a while.
I mean,
I think we were there for at least an hour before we had an ultrasound to see
Okay.
see what was going on.
Did they try to find the baby's heartbeat before that?
No.
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 Okay.
just
I
with
mean-
the ultrasound.
Okay.
So I mean, it was a lengthy time lapse, because I would think that it would be treated like an emergency,
Yeah.
for the whole reason of calling ahead and saying, "Hey, look, she's in pain," and Heather's in tears, and
So your pain was escalating.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
getting worse.
Okay.
she couldn't get comfortable. But no one tried to say, "Well, do this." No one even came to us and said, "Well, have her breathe." Like the things that you were teaching us at the birthing class after
Mm-hmm.
we met you and stuff.
Uh-huh.
No one there came to help us with anything, like to give us any guidance or anything.
Okay. So who actually then told you what had happened?
After they did the ultrasound, all the nurses left, and they waited for the doctor to come in. And I don't remember how long it was. It felt like forever. Like I felt like I was in there forever, waiting to know something. Because the last thing I knew is that they looked at the ultrasound, they left, and then eventually the doctor came in and said that they couldn't find a heartbeat.
Well,
And
didn't they have trouble finding? Like they were trying to get a hold of our doctor,
yeah,
and they couldn't get a hold of our doctor, our OB. So it ended up being a OB,
just an on-call.
an on-call OB, and which once they actually made, I think they,
He did eventually come. Our original doctor did eventually come. It was just,
but well after the fact,
I don't
because it was actually
remember.
I'm thinking it was the OB, the on-call OB that delivered the baby.
Okay.
But there was, and I want to point out, there was, 2-3 nurses
Mhm.
that once they took on their shift and they came in and started dealing with us, it was like,
Night and day difference.
yeah.
Based on what we had.
They were compassionate. They showed they cared. They had bedside manner. They were like, "Hey, what can we do for you?" They didn't necessarily know. No one knows what to say in a situation like that. Even if you've been through it, you don't really know. But just showing and trying to make you comfortable and being like, "Is there anything you need?" and just checking every little bit to see if, And some people were going to say, "Just leave me alone." Some people were going to say, "Stay," and
Right.
they were willing to do whatever.
Okay.
And the OB, the on-call OB, was better than our actual OB,
Okay.
because she was more like trying to explain, and give us that peace of mind, like it's not our fault, because we were ready to start blaming ourselves.
Right.
But yeah, it seemed like it took longer than it should have.
Okay. Do you you remember what was going through your mind when the
I was in
reality?
denial.
You were in denial.
I was in denial there for a while because after they told me that they couldn't find the heartbeat at all, that I still didn't believe it until after the fact. And then I still think I was still like kind of in a daze. I can remember just sitting there still thinking that, oh, it's nothing. They're just going to induce and it'll be fine. But that wasn't the case. And that was the longest days, I think, of our lives.
So how long was it after that you delivered? I'm going to say her name, Ella.
Yeah. Ella was born probably, I think I was in, they had to try to induce my labor quite a few times to get it to take. And it was still probably at least 12 hours before she
Okay.
was born.
Okay.
Back then I was thinking, well, is there no reason they wouldn't try to do a C-section just in case? But I guess at that point they said that there was really no.
It wasn't even like an option for
Yeah,
us at that
they
point.
didn't give us that option.
Yeah.
Okay.
They just said we're going to induce your labor and deliver the baby.
Now, during that time you were in labor, how do you feel like your care was as far as compassionate or?
Well, that was when
That was when the different nurses took over, so they were constantly checking on me and making sure that everything was progressing like it should.
Okay.
They did ask me before, like right before it was getting ready to happen, that whether or not we wanted to see her right away or if we needed some time, and we said just give us a little bit of time first and then we'll decide.
Okay.
Because we weren't sure what to do.
Right.
Wasn't sure
Would
what
have been
to
helpful if
expect.
somebody would have suggested something to you, you think, at that time?
It would have been.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Just like told us what we missed that. Like if we didn't see, I mean, we eventually did get to hold her and see her, but it would have been nice if someone was there just saying that you might want this down the road.
Right.
You might want a picture. You
Right.
might want to dress the baby. You might want to,
Bathe the baby.
yeah,
Yeah.
to give it a bath, to do stuff that you're never going to get to do.
Right.
it's almost like,
Because at that moment, you're not really thinking about any of that.
no,
Yeah.
and you're gonna leave it open if you don't try to at least have those options.
Yeah.
It's like closing the circle of the love you have for that,
Right.
to where because you would do it with any other loved one, you would try to say your goodbyes and try to say
Right.
we'll see you soon,
Right.
or see you again.
Right. So did you get to hold Ella?
Yeah.
And did you get some mementos?
We did get to
footprints,
hold her. They did footprints for us. And one of the good nurses took one picture of her. I guess they found something in the back to put on her because she had some kind of outfit on. But and they did give us one picture, but that was something that they did off to the side.
So they could have asked you if you had an outfit that you wanted
Right.
to put on her,
Right.
or
And
taking
I-
a picture of you two together, or
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that.
Because we don't have any pictures of us with her. Just one picture of her in the back.
Like, I have to say, the nurses that were there for the delivery part of it and for the farewell part of it, the saying goodbyes and stuff, they were doing everything that they could think of.
Right.
Because anything,
It was just prior to and after the fact that
yeah,
they were less compassionate.
yeah. And you could tell that they probably haven't dealt with too many of those. In our situations, I don't know, but because the hospital itself didn't seem to have preparations like we've talked about before.
Any kind of protocol set up for something like that, because I know it was pretty traumatic for both of us.
Yeah.
I mean, we
Right.
didn't know what was going on.
Right.
I had no idea what the pain was from, and until after the fact, and then I knew I was bleeding. Like they had to give me, I don't know how much blood, because I had lost quite a bit, but I didn't know that I was.
Yeah. Yeah. Did they help you with final preparations or anything, or how did you decide what to do?
No. The only thing that they asked us is if we knew of a funeral home, if we wanted to do that. But other than that, they didn't really give us any options. Like, they didn't give us any local information.
Okay.
Yeah. It was just, we were fortunate enough to well, I was still thinking of like what to do next, what to do next, what to do next to prepare, and my family already had plots at a cemetery, and luckily our family was somewhat supportive, even though they didn't know how to deal with the emotional pain of it. Even though our families have both went through losses prior, like, I guess the old school way of thinking was you just forget about it, or you just
Move on.
numb it and just move on.
Yeah.
So they weren't very emotional support, but as far as like the physical parts of it, like,
Yeah, they were the ones making the appointments for us
Yeah.
instead of getting any information from the hospital.
yeah, so like they contacted the funeral home, and then I went and met with the funeral home director and found out all of our options and things like that, and then my grandfather and uncle took care of the graveside stuff, and it was if people don't have that, or
I don't know what they would have done in our situation if we didn't have family members that would do that. Leaving the hospital, we didn't go home with anything like to say, hey, you might need to look into this, or if there's cemeteries around that do have open plots, we didn't go home with any of that.
Okay.
which that leads us
Or
to
or even cremation. Like
Yeah.
they didn't tell us which funeral home to go to, or even give us any information on that.
yeah.
We went home with a couple packets of paper, but nothing really to explain what happened.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they were just like, wait for the results, because they asked us if we wanted an autopsy.
Yeah.
We said yes, but that didn't really. They didn't tell us how long it could take originally until we started asking questions. If they were forthright and said, hey, don't expect any results for 6 to 8 weeks or 4 to 8 weeks, wherever the case may be for typical protocols, that would have been, okay, we know to wait
Then
this
you have
long.
an expectation. Yeah.
Yeah, this is where we need to wait for, and then once this time hits and we don't see anything, then we know to start bugging people or find out what's going on. But yeah, we were kind of in the dark, more or less,
Yeah.
of what to expect or what to do.
Even with chaplain service coming in, I mean, they're still just kind of in the dark of giving us information and trying to help us more so.
Well, the chaplain service was one of the worst ones I've ever seen,
Yeah.
because, like, I'll get into that, because I'm getting ready to step out of the room to just get a little bit of fresh air and figure out what I need to do next to deal with everything. The chaplain walks in, and he just asked me, is this Heather Perkins' room? And I'm like, yes. And he didn't even introduce himself. And I'm like, he just walks past me. He doesn't even ask me who I am. He just walks past me, no introduction, and he goes straight to Heather's bed. And I'm like, okay. I turn around, go right back in. I'm like, who's this guy? And he starts talking to her, and he's like, I'm the chaplain here, and if there's anything I can do, I'll glad to help you. Gives your contact information, and then expresses that him and his wife has been through this, and he's talking to Heather, and I'm just kind of standing off to the side of her bed, and as he talks to you briefly, just saying, hey, if you need anything, give me a call. And then he starts walking towards the door, and I step over to the door, and he just hands me a card and says, if she's having any problems, have her contact me. And he walks away.
So he doesn't acknowledge your grief at all as a
No.
father.
Well, he did. He said, I don't even think he knew who I was. He didn't care to find out.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't stop the story of the chaplain there. I actually deployed to Afghanistan, a month later? And so I'm in Afghanistan, and Heather's going through some stuff, and I contact the chaplain service through the military to reach out to Heather, and which the chaplain from the military actually reached out earlier to me and said, hey, if there's anything you guys need, let me know, and I'll try to get, if I can't get there, I'll get someone local that I can find to come and meet with you guys or meet with Heather. And I'm like, well, I appreciate that. So I contact the chaplain while I'm overseas, and I'm like, hey, I'd like someone to come and check on her since I'm gone. And with him not knowing that chaplain from the hospital, he actually contacts that chaplain.
Mm-hmm.
And does he actually call you?
He called me once.
He called her once.
And we met once, and then that was it. He said, I'll check back with you after the holidays, because it was right before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I'll check back with you after the holidays, and I never heard from him again.
So there's importance in following up with people after they have this
Yes.
kind of experience.
Well, I mean,
and keep in contact with them.
Right.
It's just like,
The hospital did call probably a day or two after we got home, but then that was it. I don't think we heard from him anymore after that. Nobody else from the chaplain service followed up or grief support of any kind. Because where we were, I mean, there is like mental health groups, but we were never referred to or given any information from somebody if we would need grief support.
So we met through a support group.
Mm-hmm.
And can you tell a little bit about how you think that may have helped you, the support group?
It was soon after he got home that we randomly got this postcard in the mail. And to come to a luncheon for the support group that was going to be starting up in where we were going. So we just decided to go to that luncheon, and we got to meet you and a couple other families. And then we started coming to meetings, and at that time we were pregnant again. So it came at a good time because we were nervous, as to be expected after going through something like that. But I still feel like we were meant to go. We were meant to meet you. That there was something that brought us there. And if it wasn't for that support group at that time, I'm not sure if we would have been able to get through that pregnancy and just get through dealing with the grief. Because since he was gone the entire year after, I don't think either of us really dealt with it.
Yeah.
We were kind of in limbo still while he was gone. But it was at those meetings that we were able to start trying to open up and talking about it and realizing that it wasn't really our fault, that this stuff happens. And I think it really made a difference in how we look at the grief now. And we've been able to overcome it and do stuff like this.
we're not saying the pain ever goes away from it,
No.
but it just gets a little bit where
A little bit easier.
you can live with it and deal with it and maybe help others with it. And that's what the support group taught us.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we realized very abruptly that our families couldn't deal with it emotionally. Like I mentioned earlier, they can deal with the physical parts of it, like getting things ready and doing things that we need to get done, but everything emotional and verbal, talking about stuff, they're even at a loss because of the old mentality of it, and
It's just something that happens.
and it
Go on.
still hurts them to think about it because of their losses, and then to see losses from their children
Yeah.
having to go through that pain, and they don't know how to deal with it because that wasn't something that we've had in the past. And now that we're understanding and trying to adapt to
Encouraging more to open up about it instead of just keep it all in.
Yeah. you know, we're doing this program to maybe help educate nurses and chaplains and hospital staff around the state. Is there anything that you could just add at the end to say that maybe could help them to understand what you were going through, and maybe to help them change their practice a little bit or prepare for something like this if they've never experienced, even as a new nurse taking care of a patient
Right.
with a loss?
Well, I would say, like,
Don't listen to your patient the whole time. They'll probably tell you, oh no, I don't need that. I don't want that.
yeah,
But they will regret it later. Like trying the mementos and stuff, like just having something to remember everything with, because you're not thinking about that. And they really do need to focus on, it's not just the mother going through it all, it's the father too. They might not admit to it right away, but if they have the information, then they can reach out when they're ready. But to just exclude them altogether, that's,
Yeah.
I mean, the mother is more connected to the infant, especially since it's a stillbirth or something, but they still need to be included in the grieving process.
Right.
because I mean every situation is going to be different, and you can't plan for every situation. But you have to think to yourself, if I was in those shoes, how would I want to be treated? And would I want someone to be compassionate and understanding? And just, most of the time, it's just knowing that they're there and they're willing to, you know, make you a little bit more comfortable.
Calm your fears a little bit,
Right.
even
Yeah.
if it's terrible. Like if it's a terrible
Right.
outcome, just try to calm.
And even if they
Calm your
don't know for
fears.
sure, to admit that it's okay. They don't know, but they're going
They're
to help
gonna-
you find out.
Yes.
Yeah, just,
Don't keep you in the dark.
yeah, don't say nothing. Just say, you know, if they can just say, just give us some time. We're going to get an answer as soon as we can, and we'll let you know. And they just, you know, randomly check and say, hey, is there anything to make you, that you need to get a little bit more comfortable? Or you, do you need an extra pillow? Do you need an extra blanket? Because at no point in the initial part of it, because I even told the nurse that came to do the urinalysis, hey, we didn't even get pillows. I had to find these. And I only found like one pillow and one blanket in the closet. And I was like, hey, can we get some extra? Like, they didn't even offer. I had to ask for additional pillows, additional blankets to try to just make her a little bit more comfortable.
Right.
And as the father, yes, it's my job to, you know, protect my wife, protect my newborn. But it's their job to help.
Right.
I shouldn't have to be doing their job on top of doing my job. My job is to be there, not running down the hallway looking for stuff. Because I actually walked out of the room a couple times to go find stuff. I was getting ready to raid other rooms and just basically take over the hospital.
Yeah.
Because no one that nurse never even got up. Like, even when I came out to ask for stuff, she was like, well, I'll send someone in with that.
Yeah.
And they would never come in.
And that, your perception of that, whether it's true or not, is that they just didn't care what was going on with
Yeah.
you at the time.
Yeah, they didn't really care, or they just thought it was nothing. Like we're
Yeah.
just two freaked out young parents that don't know what they're talking about.
What made the situation even worse was, as I was looking for stuff, I didn't see anybody else in the hospital. It was
Like
like,
you were
it wasn't
alone.
it wasn't like they were maxed out in capacity, and they were dealing with, you know, multiple parents and multiple babies. Like,
Yeah, I don't
even remember seeing anybody else
remember
in the
either.
OB floor.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we first got there, the only person I remember seeing from walking in and getting in our room was the one nurse at the nurse's station
Yeah.
that didn't want to get up.
So just, you know, being compassionate, showing that you care, staying with the patient, even if you don't know, just be honest.
Right.
Help her to kind of know what she wants, even though she doesn't know.
Yeah.
Mementos, helping
Right.
with arrangements, all those kinds of things
Mhm.
would have made your experience a little better.
Yes.
Right.
A lot better.
Okay.
Yeah, because like, I just have the mentality. I look at what do I need to do next? What do I need to do next?
Yeah.
Versus dealing with, like, I'm not very good with the emotional part of it either, but I was trying. But what helped me was the fact that I was so busy trying to take care of everything, but it didn't give me a chance to try to figure out the emotional side of it because
Right.
I was too busy doing everybody else's job to.
Kind of doing the physical part of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I want to thank you guys for sharing your story. Hopefully, this
glad to.
experience will help others to maybe look at how they're doing things, and we
That's
can
our
improve
hope,
care
to try to
Um,
make a difference.
in the hospitals in West Virginia. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.